Hey everybody, this is Rev J with Rev J Rides. Traveling through a really pretty area once again, which I could go just about in any direction from my house, and I would have beautiful views. I really love the state of Tennessee. I wasn't born here. I was born in Mesa, Arizona. So there are a lot of different landscapes to the places where I've lived. First of all, Mesa, Arizona, and then later a place in California, which was a very different landscape than what I was used to in Mesa. And then I moved from California to Oklahoma. It was very different. It was a little more green in Oklahoma, had a few more hills and probably a few more trees than what I was used to in Arizona or California. But then I moved to Tennessee. And you talk about hills, you talk about trees, wow. I really like it out here. It's a pretty place to ride, that's for sure. Hey, I thought I would talk with you about something that God has brought to my mind recently. There's a story of Joseph in the Bible. Joseph was one of 12 brothers, and his brothers and he were kind of like the forefathers of Israel. They started the 12 tribes, or their 12 brothers were the start of the 12 tribes. Joseph was sold into slavery, and by his brothers, by the way. And after he was sold into slavery, he was betrayed by a woman who claimed that he had taken advantage of her, but he had not. And then, after he was sold into slavery and betrayed by a woman, he was put in a prison wrongly. There should have been no charge against him. It was a false charge. But there he sat in prison. And as he sat in prison, Joseph wound up telling a couple of different people about what their dreams meant. And later, one of them stood before Pharaoh and eventually said, if you need your dreams interpreted, there's a guy back in prison that can do that. His name is Joseph. And so the king eventually brought him out of prison and placed him in second command of the entire, nation of Egypt. But at the time, the nation of Egypt was the most powerful nation on the planet. So therefore, when he placed him in that position of power in Egypt, he was really one of the most powerful men in all of the world. Some would argue the most powerful. Well, later he met his brothers, the ones that had originally betrayed him and sold him into slavery. Now, he didn't do it right away, but when he was talking with his brothers in the end, they were pretty concerned that he was going to do something to get back at him. And Joseph eventually told him, he said, what you intended for harm, God intended for good. It's through the way that he wound up in this position of power. Even though it was rough, nobody wants to be sold into slavery. Nobody wants to be betrayed once, twice, and then forgotten another time. But even though that was a rough experience, it was actually for the good in the end. That's how Joseph became such a powerful man on the planet. And by being in that role, he actually saved thousands of lives, maybe millions of lives. So God had a plan. God's plan did include suffering in the beginning, but in the end, God's plan saved many, many people. And really, that's kind of a story of Jesus in a way. Even though God's plan included suffering for Jesus, in the end, it meant that many, many people would be saved. Millions would be saved, even though Jesus had to go through suffering. Kind of like with Joseph. Millions probably were saved, even though Joseph had to go through some suffering. If you are a follower of Jesus, like I am, you might have to go through some suffering. But you know what? In God's plan, it's going to be okay. Because He will use us for greater things. What some people mean for evil, God means for good. People try to hurt us. People try to do things to us that are mean and ugly and wrong. But in God's plan, it's for a good purpose, actually. And God will use that to glorify Himself and even to raise us up into a position where we can do even greater things. There's another verse in the New Testament that says, "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him and who are called according to His purpose." So, if we love God, and if we are called according to His purpose, which means anybody who belongs to Jesus, actually, because Jesus calls us not just to be saved, but also calls us for His kingdom's purpose. So anybody who is a follower of Jesus, truly, it doesn't matter what people do to us or what kind of harm they try to bring to us. They can betray us. They can do wrong. But even so, even if they do those things, God will take those things and make them useful in the life of the believer. He will take those things and make something good out of it. You know, I see some of that sort of thing happening in my life right now. There are some people that I do believe have betrayed me. But it's okay, because God is in control, and He will get the glory, number one. And number two, He's going to give me an even better position from what they've done. Isn't that incredible? He raises us up in times when we think we're down low. Every time somebody tries to bring us low, God raises us back up. We just have to trust Him. God is good. He does this every time. Keep trusting Him. Hey, hit like, share, and subscribe. We'd love to have you aboard. God bless.